ball pythons are probably one of, if not the most recommended beginner snake ever to exist. And there are definitely reasons for that. But today we're going to cover both the pros and the cons of ball pythons. This guy's just coming back from the show we did this past weekend, although I think this video is going to be posted at a weird time because I'm preparing videos ahead of time for when we go on vacation. And he is really showing, because he's cold, he's showing why the ball python got its name to begin with. Uh, these guys are called royal pythons over in Europe, and they were originally owned by royalty, which is why they were called royal pythons. But then here in America, we call them ball pythons because they like to ball up. As he warms up, though, he's probably going to sneak on out, even though he spent 2 days being handled by hundreds of people. He is a very friendly boy, so he'll probably be a pain to hold. So on the pros list is definitely the fact that they're a really good size. And I say this because they are girthier. So they're going to be about the same length as a corn snake, which is another really commonly recommended beginner snake. But these guys are going to be girthier. And that often makes them a little easier to hold, especially for kids. So to hand a ball python to a small child is really easy to do, whereas to hand a corn snake to a small child can be a lot more complicated, especially if the corn snake is really young. So like under a year and a half, the corn snake is going to be like skinny and little tiny, and it can be hard for kids to handle. A baby ball python is still going to be big enough that there's something for them to grab onto, and that makes it really easy for them to hang on to. Along with their size on the pros is also how they move. So they're going to be a slow, deliberate moving snake. And it's not that they can't move, faster, just that their general mode is going to be slow and easygoing. And that makes it really good for people who are afraid of snakes. And it makes, again, kids, it's really good. And it's just a much more relaxed, slow going type of interaction. And this gives them the behavior along with the balling part. They're often called movie snakes. Some ball pythons are better at being movie snakes than others. Some are a little too exploratory. And the more confident your ball python is, the more it's actually going to explore and move and try out the nooks and crannies in your couch. So it's actually a scared ball python that's going to, stay in the little tiny ball for a long time. Um, so the behavior of the ball python makes it a very good snake. That being said, not everybody likes that slow interactive mode. I actually prefer the corn snake because it moves faster and is more of a interactive experience. That being said, it is a little harder to do while filming, and it is also going to be harder to do when you're doing other things. So I've heard of people, throwing the ball python around their neck, whoop, and then going and making coffee and or filming videos. There are a lot of things that you can do while wearing a ball python that you definitely cannot do with a corn snake because you can't have two hands. Although some ball pythons do better with the around the neck thing than others. This guy here is going to go up my shirt. And the final pro that I have for you today is the fact that these guys are going to come in a bazillion different morphs. And that gives you all sorts of different colors and patterns. And there's pretty much something for everyone on the looks front of the ball python world. There are also new combos and even new genes that are found each year to make things even more interesting. This can also have a con side to it, though, because you can end up wanting to collect them all, and that can mean you have a collection of ball pythons that's too big. I have seen a number of times where people ended up with 8, 10 snakes and then find out that the care for that many snakes is just a little too much work. So you have to figure out if that is a pro or a con for you. Though many other snakes do come in a variety of patterns, so And there are, of course, lots of different snakes that you can own. So you can also end up with collecting them all from a different standpoint. Well, size is definitely on the pros for a lot of people. There is an element where size is on the con side too. So this girl here is not full grown yet, and the ball python can be a fairly hefty snake. So we have ball pythons that are as much as 5 pounds, and that's not even the biggest ball pythons out there. So you can end up with a pretty hefty snake, and that can be a con. In addition to the actual weight and heftiness of the snake, there's the fact that it is recommended that you have a fairly large enclosure. The current recommendations for most are that you keep your ball python in a 4 foot by 2 foot by 2 foot enclosure. And this is a fairly expensive enclosure, and it's not available at PetSmart or Petco. You have to go to a company that makes enclosures, and it isn't a cheap endeavor. It also takes up a lot of space in your house or your bedroom, depending on where you're keeping your ball python, and that is a downside. On the care aspect, I think there are a number of things to talk about that can be cons. I don't think that the cons outweigh the pros, especially for people who love the experience of handling a nice sized ball python and who find it enjoyable. The cons, the one that bugs me the most and that makes it hard for me to like the ball pythons. So I actually love the ball pythons, but if I had to take care of it on a regular basis, I would probably not own ball pythons. So the thing that I don't like is the fact that they're a pain in the butt to feed. Depending on where you got your ball python may have been eating live rats. And I could not feed live rats for two reasons. The first reason I don't want to feed live rats is because things can happen where the rats are the victor. So this is actually Lucky, and Lucky is a rescue. This situation did not happen in my care, and I'm working very hard to heal up what's left, to heal up his face because the rest of his wounds have healed. So all of this here is scar tissue, and he's even lost the tip of his tail, and he still has a major issue with his face. And it was all caused because his former owner threw a live rat in with him and then left for a week. And the rat was the victor. And both animals were alive when the guy came back a week later. But the ball python was barely alive, and he has had a long road to recovery and isn't even there yet. So this can happen. Obviously, if you are observing your snake with its live food, then you can intervene long before you get any situation like this. You definitely don't want to throw a rat in there and leave for a week and hope for the best. But you can have your snake get rat bites, and it's just something that happens because rats can protect themselves to some degree. Obviously, in most cases, it's the snake that wins, and he had the power to eat that rat, but he did not. I do not know why he chose to suffer for the week instead of eat it, but he did, and that is what has happened. The other reason I won't feed live is that I really love rats. Rats make amazing pets of their own. They're very sweet and loving, and most of them think of you as a big rat who's joined the colony and they love playing with. So for me, the frozen thawed was never really a question. And but when you buy from a big, particularly a big breeder, it is pretty likely that they're breeding their own rats, and then they just throw a rat in there. They do often go back and check, so they're not having situations like the situation with Lucky. Um, but they are used to eating live animals, and it can be really hard to switch them over to frozen thawed. So, in addition to the fact that they are very picky eaters and they need all of their parameters like lined up in order for them to want to eat, they also have, let's see if I can get her, they have these heat pits. So, all of these little holes in the front of her face are heat pits, and they register the heat coming off of the animal. So, they're seeing in like infrared, and when you are feeding a frozen thawed rat, you have to get it hot enough that it actually looks like it's alive. And sometimes the snake is even picky enough that they want you to do a little dance that makes the rat look like it's alive, because they're like, I don't want to eat a dead thing. So it can be really complicated to feed a ball python, especially if you're going to feed frozen thawed. When it comes to animals like corn snakes and milk snakes and king snakes, these animals eat so well that it doesn't actually matter, and you can get them on frozen thawed really easily. Even an animal that's regularly fed live will often take frozen thawed without a problem. But the ball python can be a really big pain in the butt. Now, if you're going to get from a smaller breeder, they might already have it on frozen thawed. You can also, on Morph Market, there's an option to select frozen thawed, so you can even sort by animals that are already on frozen thawed. This girl here, for example, is obviously a ball python. She hatched out in August. She was part of that buyout that we did in January, and she eats frozen thawed as well as my corn snakes. So she is really easy to feed each week, and it's really great. But that's not always the case with the ball python. So other cons are going to include your care, and these are just things that you have to get into the right frame of, like, once you've got it set, then it's all set and you're good to go. So the ball python is going to need in a heat gradient that often has your cool side a little warmer than your household temperature, especially in the winter. At least that's what we find here. So we've had to supplement heat on both sides of the enclosure and just have bigger heat lamps on the warm side than on the cool side. But in the wintertime, our temps were dropping too low on the cool side to maintain that heat gradient, especially in the 4 foot by 2 foot enclosure. If it was a smaller enclosure, then heating just one side would be probably enough to provide you with a heat gradient that works. The other thing that we've done is that most of our snakes are here in the reptile room, and the reptile room is warmer than the rest of the house, and that makes it so that that heat, we don't need to heat both sides of the enclosure. Then humidity can be a challenge. So to help with that, you want a moisture retaining substrate, and you want it to be really thick. And you're going to pour water directly into your substrate. So misting snakes is not a good idea. They're not like the geckos where you mist on a regular basis to help with your humidity. Instead, you're going to want to be pouring water into that soil. Now, ball pythons, it's just now becoming common for people to keep ball pythons on a bioactive environment, and it works really great. You do have to get plants that your particular ball python doesn't like trample over, but you can keep them with isopods, and you can keep them with the drainage layer and live plants, and all of that helps with your humidity. And then you want that humidity to be over 60%. Not having your humidity in range can cause feeding issues and shed problems. And so it's really, really important to get that dialed in. And the drier the area that you live, the harder that's going to be. And so I do find that to be a con. It is not something you can't overcome. You can definitely dial in on it and on what works for you in your area, and then have, a happy, healthy ball python. So another pro, we'll throw that out here at the end here. Another pro to the ball python, though, is they're very durable, and while I do not suggest you neglect them or you don't try to do your best to meet their needs, you do have time to get it all figured out. If you buy a chameleon, you might not have everything figured out in time to keep that animal healthy. The ball python is going to be durable and is going to give you a little wiggle room to figure it all out. So I'm so glad that you were here, and I hope that you learned something, that you enjoyed the video, that you enjoyed seeing the snakes. If you could take a moment to subscribe, to leave a comment, to like this video, that'd be fantastic. And there'll be more cool videos to watch after our exciting egg and baby counter that will be posted after this. Have a wonderful day.